Alright, hello everyone, and welcome to the first episode of D&D&Dumbbutts. Let me just transition over to today's scene. There we go. And here today with me, we have Curly and
Hello.
Sleepy.
Hello! I decided on the same entrance word.
Yeah, he copied me.
Wow, you're just copying him this entire time. Disappointing.
It's hilarious.
Today's episode will be basic world building. And how we go about it, I think. Curly, would you like to start with what's the first thing that you do when world building?
World building. First thing I would do, well, usually is just kind of have an idea of what kind of world you want, like what kind of setting, like whether you want it to be futuristic, past, fantasy, more like realistic world. You want to get a good feel to what setting you want it to be. First of all, really. And
Like a
then once
generic theme or
yeah,
something
do you
along
want it?
those
Do you want
lines?
to be like steampunk, futuristic, Victorian, whatever, you want to get a good idea of all that kind of stuff before anything else.
I just realized I can promote this and see if we can get a couple listeners in. Wow, we're live. I'm going to cut this out when I'm editing the podcast.
Aha. Of
I'm
course.
just gonna
classic.
constantly turn off and on my captions. I think that's the best thing I could do. Nice.
Oh, okay.
All right. I
Okay.
have posted. I don't know if anyone will actually. What? Oh, we have 4 viewers currently. What the hell?
Well, one of them's me, so.
Well, yeah,
One of
but
them's
still,
also
and
me.
one of them's Sleepy, but
One of them
still,
left.
that's
Okay. So,
that's an abnormal amount of people.
yes.
Should you put it on the title, like episode 1, like world
Yeah,
building
that's
or
probably a
something
good
like that?
idea.
Just so it's not too confusing.
Yes. I like how we started and then stopped.
Yeah, pretty much.
Started
Welcome
and then
to this
immediately stopped.
wonderful
Yeah.
podcast.
All right.
I think those captions are having a hard time understanding my language, my speech,
Your Britishness.
my British accent, mate.
It understood me saying Britishness.
Yeah.
Yes, it's having trouble understanding your pretty
hey.
goodness.
Hey, Britishness.
There you go.
There we go. It's understood it.
I think theme is generally the best place to start out. The question is, where do you go from there? Because I usually start with characters. Like, I'll grab an important character and come up with motivations for what they do and decide whether or not they've done something in the past or something along those lines. And that's generally the next step that I do, but I don't know what you prefer to do.
Weirdly enough, I do not start with characters at this point. When it comes to making it, I like to just kind of get a good idea of the actual world is in, what it's like, mainly like there's different ways of going about this. Some people like to like make the entire globe and then zoom into like a specific country and stuff like that, or some people do the opposite where they'll do one single country and do the entire world. For me, I kind of do a mix where I basically got the name of the world, the main continents, like names and stuff, and then I focus on one like city or one place specifically. And from there, once I've got those kind of elements down, I can maybe say, oh, this thing happened in the history, catastrophe or something, and then I talk about important people and that are involved with this. Like maybe this country or continent had a massive war, and there's two leaders, and they all make a big role in the story, or something like that. So I usually focus on making sure I've got everything, a good idea of the world and what state it's in, and then I kind of do characters after that. But there's different ways of going about it, and there's nothing really wrong with it. You can do characters, world, or do a mix.
Yeah, I usually start with a character or two, and then I make the world map and set up countries. Like the one for our current D&D, or our upcoming D&D campaign, I should say, of Homebrew Mess Skyfall. I came up with some characters and motivations, and then I started generating a world map and manipulating it and getting everything looking in a way that I thought was cool and that would fit the setting and be good. Mostly that looked cool, and then that had the space, and then I manipulated all of the like country borders, saying with a little bit of reasoning to them, and then it's usually later that I go back in with like what wars happened to cause these borders and who started which war, what were the motivations, who were the main players, and that sort of thing usually comes later for me.
Yeah. I tend to think of it campaign to campaign. If it's more of a stagnant campaign, you really don't have to create all too much world building, because you just have to create the little place and like make them feel like I have a campaign idea for like a horror game show type thing. So for that, I think of a lot of encounters, and I try to think of what personalities would match this encounter and how the player could be entertained. I just try to think of what's going to entertain the player the most. I think of my players, and then like I think of what I have fun and how to mess with them. Of course, you got to mess with your players.
Yeah.
I kind of view it a lot of like what would be fun slash how my players want to play.
Yeah, it's very important to kind of like, although I start off with the world, that's only really because it just makes it easier for me to focus on characters. Because for me, to make the world fun and make campaign fun for players, not only do you have to make maps and all that stuff, but characters are very important in the world, because that's the thing that players are really going to interact with and have the most sort of, well, care for, and they'll care for the world in that way better, because they won't just care for the world. If you just give them a cool lore and stuff, you have to have stuff in it that they all care about.
Yeah, that's one of the most important things, I think, is it's always going to be characters for me, because a player isn't going to feel an emotional connection with a place as much as they are a character. So if you get a character and you get your party engaged with the character and caring about the character, and that character is in a city, and then you say, oh, well, this city is in danger because of an upcoming war, your party's going to be like, oh shit, we gotta go, we gotta go to that city, we gotta help out this person we know. Whereas if you just have a place with no interesting characters, nobody really cares.
Yeah, they're not going to be like, oh
Like
man,
a place.
Oh,
Oh, sorry. I think a place could be very important to a player, depending on how you do it story-wise.
yeah.
Yes, I do think you need characters, but a place could be like a getaway for the players. Kind of like in Curly's campaign, the bar. The characters aren't like they're strong in the bar, but they're not like super strong characters. You know, they're just normal mooks, to be honest.
They're
just
they're NPCs that.
But the bar,
just.
I think like a home base is important for like a lot of long running campaigns. Otherwise, it kind of just feels like the players are wandering, and I guess that is better for adventure campaigns, quote unquote.
Well,
but I think a home base is needed even in an adventure campaign.
Even in an adventure campaign, you need some kind of home base, like a, one of my favorites to make would be like, you get an airship, because those are, or just a normal ship or large land vehicle of some kind, because those function as really good bases for adventure campaigns, because it moves around, but it's still this home, it's still this familiar place that you can have your favorite NPCs be placed at, and like hang around. Or even just like we have a house in this city that we own. It's like a clan house or a guild house that we can go back to if we need to rest, or if we need to get in contact with someone. We can always go back to the guild house. So those kind of places are important. Yes, Curly. Sorry.
It's very much having something that they can interact with, really, like something that they have direct kind of control over. It's very important in the world, so they feel like that. So the players actually feel like, you know, they're doing things. It's not like, oh, the world should also do things without them being around. You should feel like the world will keep going when they're not there, but they should have a good amount of control over it as well with their actions. Both for minor things, like for example, a base that they can add things at their pleasure or do things, give them time or money or whatever, or to more massive things like they could start a war, for example. But having that kind of level of allowing the players to do things is a very important thing for them to kind of care for the world. But you have to have some restriction. You can't just let them be a god, essentially.
It's you have to let your players feel like they're having an impact without making them overpowered. Well, you can make them a little overpowered as long as there's always more powerful things to challenge them.
You just need to balance it out.
Like in my campaign, there's some overpowered magical artifacts, but there's always a threat of the door person who can just show up and shank you.
I think my character in himself is technically an artifact with the amount of magic that goes off of him.
Oh yeah, that.
You're making all of us into artifacts. Legendary. Of legendary.
Every single person is going to be a unique, wondrous item of artifact level status at the end.
Watch it be Lawler, the third person that's in there. Sorry.
I'm just imagining some really tall, big, like Goliath or some massive creature just holding Kai, like just carrying him like an like a magic artifact. But yeah, you want that impact, but because they just won't have any care otherwise.
Yeah, they just won't
gotta
feel like
and analyze your your
It'll feel like
players
maybe
and
it'll,
their characters during the campaign and work around them. You can't just go with what you want.
yeah, it will feel at that point it's just railroading, and that's not fun for anyone.
Yeah.
It's not even
Like
fun
that.
to railroad as a DM because you just feel
No.
like trash. You're like,
Yeah, you do, and
Let's talk
like, and
about
if you ever have to railroad things, you should at least make it feel like there are things they could do about it in a way, or make so
Yeah.
it can be adjusted, like even a slight bit. Because again,
give
in a
them
way,
options, even if all of the options lead towards similar results. You
Yeah.
have to give them options
it's-
and like, you could go do this to get what you need, or you could go do this to get what you need, but you still need to get said thing.
it's basically the Telltale Games sort of effect where like the destination it will usually be the same no matter like, maybe like the ending will be the same no matter what. It's just their journey to get there should be completely different. No matter who it is.
The with community storytelling, the
Yeah.
journey really is what matters, and that sounds kind of cliche,
Yeah.
like, you know, it's the friends we made along the way, but genuinely what really matters is the journey. The destination is cool, but it's not as important as the story that you tell along the way.
in D&D for me, it was a collective storytelling. I know for some people it's fun battle game, and other people it's
Yeah, I don't get that mentality really, because that's just
I can understand it. It's like just any other tabletop.
you know. But I
experience.
think the thing that splits
It's
D&D is the fact of the roleplay, because that's what makes it just apart from just being a war game essentially. You know.
It is.
Plus
It's
it's a war
it's a
campaign.
TTRPG. It's a tabletop role-playing game.
Yes.
I expect.
You can have combat. You can use the role plays
No.
different.
Oh no, I'm not saying that there's anything wrong with it. It's just that there's some people do focus a lot more on that than anything, which is again is fine.
Yeah, I'm not gonna discount you if you do a combat-heavy campaign. There are probably better systems than D&D for you if you want to do combat primarily, because D&D is meant to be a balance between combat and roleplay.
But anyway, like again off
Anyway,
the world building
the
stuff.
topic. Back on the topic. What like references do you use? What references do you guys use for your campaign?
Honestly, as probably as like when it comes to things like art and stuff, because D&D with story writing in a way is technically a bit of an art. Like how doing music and stuff. I try to not be inspired by anything. As weird as that sounds, because the more I kind of look at things for reference and stuff, the more likely I am to possibly copy that thing or kind of take a bit too much inspiration. So by me just literally using my brain and just everything that I've learned over the years and just doing whatever comes out of my brain, the more unique it will end up being usually. But I know that kind of thing doesn't work for everyone, but referencing is still useful. But you need to make sure to have restraint so you don't copy things. But for me, I try to be creative as possible.
I do the exact opposite, in that if I make references to literally everything, then I'm not copying any one thing. So it's not that I make a ton of references to one thing, it's that I make about 1 million references to individual separate things.
I personally enjoy a good reference.
Yeah.
It's just like, as long as like it's not predictable, you know?
Yeah.
As long as when it comes to references, yeah. When it comes to referencing,
when
I
it
try
becomes predictable, it gets boring.
The referencing isn't so much like me saying that in character or as a GM. It's more just like referencing as far as it goes for like creating things like worlds and stuff. That I try to avoid. Again, I will usually, but often I'll look at these things and then I'll like not see them for months and stuff, so it's basically forgotten, but it's still part of like my natural kind of thinking, I guess. So
Yeah, there's that kind of background where you aren't actively referencing it, but it still influenced you in the way that you were writing.
Hmm.
but
Yeah, I tend like I'm writing a pirate campaign right now, and oh follow.
oh, we got
Thanks
a
for the
follow.
follow.
Thanks
Oh,
for the
sweet.
follow,
Hell's Demon?
Hell's Demon. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
I
Thank you.
enjoy a good pirate reference such as Pirates of Caribbean. I'm probably going to throw Jack Sparrow somewhere in there. I'm gonna do blatant references for pure comedies.
That's got to be the greatest pirate I've ever seen. Whatever the reference
Yeah,
is,
stuff
I
like
don't
that.
remember.
If you
Probably.
just do, I feel like
That's got to
references are
be
excellent for
the
comedy.
most pirate I have ever seen.
You know, I'll use Captain Hook, Peter Pan, who's not really a pirate, but like
But he exists in a medium where there are pirates, so
yes. And
kind
then
of
Danny
the-
DeVito, who's clearly the piratest pirate there is, blasting.
of course.
Yeah, all of the pirates.
You gotta have like one of my favorite gods out of my like 26 or 27 that I have. It's just Morgan Freeman.
Oh yeah, Morgan
Yeah.
Freeman. You
Morgan
just
Freeman.
gotta have that random reference.
Well, I mean, we all know
It's not
he's
even
a
a
god,
reference
so,
to
I
anything in
mean,
particular.
It's
It's
a
just
reference to the person.
honestly, I
Yeah.
wouldn't be surprised when I die if I see Morgan Freeman. Like, I mean, that's just expected now
In real life or D&D?
in real life.
Yes. Morgan Freeman. Sorry, off
Morgan
topic.
That is the topic now.
No, that
We
is
now
not
need
the
to make a
topic now.
campaign that's all about Morgan Freeman, and whoever talks better wins. You know,
that's like a
We need to
one-sided
not do that
competition.
campaign.
It's a one-sided competition.
That's a one shot. Because I can't speak well, so I would automatically lose.
Yeah, and
would
also it's a
also
one-shot
lose.
in the sense that we'd all get one shot.
That's a side quest.
That's
Yes,
a side
I
quest.
agree.
Yes, that
That
is
is
I
definitely
a
agree
side
with
quest,
that.
yeah.
Hell's Demon. How do you say your name? Oh gosh, Hell's Demon.
Hell's Demon.
Oh, words.
My
The,
connections
um,
cannot grab that.
The let's see.
Yeah, I know you're Helena. That's not the point. We know how to say your name. We're talking about
Have you
your username.
Have you been waiting to sub for a stream
To follow.
so we can see it on stream so we can call you out?
Get called out.
Okay. Anyways,
called out.
where were we? Back on topic.
We're never gonna be on topic.
Back to world building. World building with a Codium. I think that's something
That is
to be told.
actually really fun. I know you're doing it with someone for a campaign. I've done it before for a in-person campaign. Unfortunately, the campaign didn't last very long because there was that whole virus thing, the pandemic.
Yeah, that small incident.
That incident, yes. But it was a lot of fun because we were they were largely in charge of people, and I was largely in charge of pretty much everything else, which is good.
Yeah.
Because I struggle sometimes to come up with characters, so we actually worked really well together to do that.
Yeah, I do think there should be one main DM for every campaign.
Yes.
And then like the Codium should not. They should have like some story power and like they have to work together. but like there's one person with the an entire concept. Otherwise, it kind of gets a little
Messy.
flaky, yeah, in like the world building aspect. Because like, oh, this thing is fact with this clan, but this clan is different. You know, stuff like that. Yeah, that was understandable, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that didn't make much sense, but it made enough sense that I know what you were talking about.
That is how I talk.
That, me too.
Enough sense.
Just enough sense for people to have a conversation, but not enough
Unless they're
sense for it to be enlightening.
One thing that could be talked about actually. I think actually wait. Thing that I don't have any experience with Codium because I've never actually done it, so I don't actually know what it's like. Kind of the experience of doing that.
Just working on it.
Yeah. But one thing that's probably a really good thing to talk about is making like a city or making a town, like a big one. Especially if you're doing like me, like a city campaign, for example, or the player's going to spend a long time in one of them. That's a good thing that we could talk about.
The government is something that
government as well.
Like the government and city all.
Well, I think
aligned
government will be a conversation for when we talk about coming up with like setting up countries and all of that stuff, because that's a whole other episode.
Yeah, I think a lot of setting up countries though. I'm not gonna go into too detail, since apparently it's another episode.
That's a whole other episode.
I have the list. I should know this.
You want to make them varied. That's the key thing. Is make them very varied.
Yes.
With not just with like creatures, people, towns and stuff, and like governments, but also just from straight up just the environment. Like maybe and because if you make everywhere have these characteristics and nowhere special essentially, so you want to have it so like this place has a desert, but it's pretty flat. This area is very mountainous. As basic as that is, it will distinguish them very much because people are like, okay, this country up north is super mountainous and super rough, and most giants and trolls and stuff live there. You know, it will distinguish it a lot more. And your players will kind of respect it a lot more.
Yeah. Again, this is part of a general world building. Is you need to have varied biomes. Like in the current Homebrew Mess campaign, you guys went from completely plains to like what's essentially a beach, like a forest on a beach, because the entire northern part of Ostis was just like plains and fields, and then you get into Jesdio and you're around this massive inland lake or inland sea, whatever, and it's just trees, and then as you're moving more north into the country, it gets really mountainous, and then like past those mountains, tropical. And then I'm not going to spoil anything else, but like the whole every country has some kind of different biome or biomes to it, and it doesn't necessarily have to be country by country, but you need to have biomes in your world.
Yeah,
it can't all be the same.
It'll be too plain. Oh gosh.
Who invited this guy to the podcast?
I think the sixth person just left on the stream because of that joke.
The like my world, for example, like you've got the northern country, Nordris as it's called. Like that's a very most of it is pretty icy and flat, but it's got a few big mountains, but it's always snowy and icy no matter what. It's a bit like the Arctic or Antarctic. And then on the opposite end, you have Roka, which I'm not going to spoil too much, but on the map, you can see how varied and different it is. It's very smoky, misty. No one really knows what is there, essentially. So, but you want to have that varied stuff. And you can go from continent to continent rather than just country to country if that makes it easier. But you can then narrow it down from there.
Does anybody else find it very difficult for a lot of world building without the player characters? For me, it's hard because I like having, like, listening to all the ideas of people during character creation and then, like, creating certain regions around them and then, like, creating, like, kind of having the rest for myself. That's kind of how I do a lot of my world creation for the pirate one for right now.
I can understand that, like, but like I didn't do that necessarily for mine. I kind of there are certain things where I would, of course, add things like, for example, Carius, who's Ashley's character. You know, if that'd be Forrest, I'd have him place for that kind of thing. But I wouldn't. It's not like a massive sort of thing. It's not like I made like a whole country or continent that is all kind of dependent on that. I'd already have them in place and then kind of tweak them a tiny bit.
Yeah, like in my campaign, Lace, I already had the country, this like empire, that was some imperial power, and then my player, he came in with a backstory, and I went, okay, you'd fit in this country.
Yeah, you fit in just right for
You'd
this.
fit in just fine. Your backstory fits in, or your background fits in this country, and we can really make this work. And then you build off of that. So there's only so far you can go without your player characters, because eventually you need to have the world in the way that it interacts with them. But
and it, like,
the so far you can go is
if you
quite
don't.
far. And
like, you will run into a roadblock if you don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like, how I'm doing it, I have it first and then I create the country, but, like, you know, not completely off based of the character. I have, like, a general idea for everything. I just, like, go around the map. This country is lame, and then I put the lame character in there. You know, like, I can understand that. It's just I find it hard to go in detail beforehand because I don't.
This country has a terrible legal system. That's where we're gonna start the game.
Yes. You also, like, I feel like you also have to see what your party wants. Although I would say my style is very passive. It's going to be, at least, because I haven't started because that one person gonna make the character. Anyways, I'm not mad.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, of course. That's
totally
what that is.
I never get mad, guys. Listen.
In the end, it's kind of all kind of leads back to sort of from the very beginning, which I said, like, you want to have kind of your theme already picked out, because the theme will kind of determine the sort of feel for your game as well, like whether it's going to be more comedic or serious, and that will kind of determine everything else, like how realistic it all is, how fantasy like it is, and how your players interact with everything. It's very important to get that down first, more than anything. Like, Homebrew Mess is very comedic, so everything is very wacky, essentially. And mine is pretty comedic as well, and wacky. And yeah, so the world can be as extreme or crazy as you want it to be, both from the government side to the countries, everything. So it's very important for that kind of thing.
I think the most important place to have mapped out is the starting area, obviously. Because without the starting area, your players are not going to get a feel. And I think it's fun to create like different vibes places they go. So I think how I do it, I have a general vibe I want the campaign to go. But if they like skip over, go back, I'm not gonna railroad it. But I do have like ideas of how to input events to happen, or some things like that, in order for fun times, as they say.
Yeah, just kind of having things kind of just in place. Like just having ideas with you is always a good thing. Just to be able to quickly just slot them in if they
Yeah,
don't.
that break the emergency box and like take out the idea. Then, oh gosh.
Yeah, that's
Need
Yeah,
essentially
if
what it
your,
is.
if your
Yeah,
players
the
ever do anything really out of the box, you gotta have some ideas on the back burner. Like I did on literally the first session of Homebrew Mess.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because I had a whole thing planned out, and then someone cast he cast Charm Person, and
it worked.
It worked,
Charm person.
and so I had to scrap that and move on to something I hadn't planned yet. But like I ended up being able to get it functional.
Yeah.
And you basically have to be really good at improving what your world is. You have to know your world well enough to improv.
Yeah, a lot of world creation is not creating anything until it's in the game. Like during the session, I should say, not in the game, because
like that. Like for example, I'm just gonna say this right now. Like that when you went to like last session to Odin, that's continent, that's town I made was just completely made up off the top of my head. Just that was it. Characters, everything. Just okay. There we go. All improv, and it's just
I'm curious. Did you know how like Odin's government was like set up, or?
I want to say yes, but also I want to say no. It was a bit of both. I knew it was independent.
You had like
but
a general idea.
I knew it was independent, but I didn't know specifics as such.
Yeah, I kind of, that's how I think. Like I think of like generals for mosting, and like the area that they're close to. I try to think of, oh gosh, what is this area like, and like try to go into detail what they're near, because they could be going anywhere during the session. Let's see, what's another topic? We should have made conversation points. Anyway.
Yeah, we'll do that
we
for the
should've.
next one and all of the ones after that. I was thinking about how we needed to make conversation points earlier today, and then I was like, nah.
We cool. We're
It'll be
awesome.
fine.
I think
just.
But as I said before, like detailing a city could be a point. Like kind of making something like that is pretty.
Well, we've
important.
already been going for almost 40 minutes, so we can wrap up soon.
Oh,
yeah, and to just have like one more conversation point. Maps are important for brain processing and organizing, I would say.
Yeah.
Maps are so important.
I think without maps, my brain would actually die. Other than like having like a chart.
Even a chart is better than nothing.
Yeah, you don't want nothing. Some people, I suggest like if you're having trouble with like coming up with a story, just stare at a map for like 20 minutes and it'll just give you information.
It could just
Either
give
that
you
or
ideas.
Like it's like the map like injects needles in my brain and it's like, here's the information, shaman. Take the information, shaman. And I'm like, okay, I have information now. Let's go. It's also important to establish magic systems and like any unique systems you have early on, I would say.
Yeah, one of the things
And
that I did was specify that magic items have to have some kind of crystalline focus for them to function,
yeah,
unless created by wild magic, but that was a single
yeah,
rare
like some
exception.
sort of rune or something of the sort. Yeah. I forgot, in your world is magic common?
In my world,
Yeah.
it depends on what country you're in. That was one of the things that I did was like some worlds have a lot of like magical. There's pure magic, there's magic, and there's magical technology, and some countries have some of one and very little of the other. Some have a lot of one and none of the other. There's it varies country to country.
I see. Back to topic. Yeah, it's very important to establish any combat systems or magic systems early, and being very talkative with your players with that stuff. That's just a general importance. Be very open with your players while also being secretive.
Yeah, unless you have a really, really good reason for something to be secret, or if it'll just be really funny, uh, those are the
Like if
only
you
two
created
reasons
like
that you should keep secret.
like if you made like a fishing mechanic or something of the sort.
Yeah.
You must keep that secret at all costs unless they go fishing and
You're not
break it out.
gonna tell them that you have a fishing mechanic unless they go fishing. You're not gonna be like, oh yeah, I spent hours making a fishing mechanic. Because then you're influencing what they're gonna do.
Although it could be very funny if you heavily coerce them into fishing. Not like force them, like
don't railroad them, but just be like, every single town they go to, there's like a fisherman that
one
goes like,
dude,
hey, do you guys want to fish with us?
and he just follows them. I need to make this now. You heard nothing.
That has to be every single island in your pirate campaign. There's the same fisherman. Like, hey, do you want to fish with us? And it's
dude,
not.
wanna
He always says us, but there's only the one guy.
Yeah, it's just one person.
It's like Nurse Joy from Pokemon. They're all brothers.
Oh yes,
Yeah,
the
the
classic.
one time the party finally follows the guy, it's just like 30 of them, all fishing from the same lake or the
Very
same like
important.
area of water.
Very, very important.
And the water's like a puddle.
You have to create joke characters and joke plot lines.
Yeah,
That's a must.
unless you're doing
Otherwise,
a
your
really
campaign will
serious
be
proper
stale.
campaign. That's the thing. Some people do go for like a really serious, realistic campaign. And
Even
that's
if you have
tone.
a fully serious campaign, you need to have a beach day. You need to have moments that your characters can relax, because if your players
Yeah.
never get to relax, it can actually begin to be genuinely stressful.
Yeah, and D&D should not be stressful.
Yeah, D&D should be. It can have a little bit of stress in like the, oh, I'm worried about whether or not I'll make this roll, but it shouldn't be like, oh, I'm continuously stressing about my D&D game because what if this horrible thing happens? And then
like you have to stress for like an arc, but like after the arc you need a rest.
Yeah.
I think this is going to more sort of game mechanics, party sort of stuff rather than world building, though. That's the thing.
That is true.
Well, we can.
Is there anything else you would like to actually say on world building in general? Because there are more episodes on specific parts of world building that we'll get into. And those episodes might be shorter, but given how much we tend to talk, I wouldn't be too sure about that.
Main thing is get your tone and theme sorted. Get some stuff made. Get some important characters that have some quirks and good backstory, and just kind of make the world unique, varied, and just kind of try and make it varied, really, and interesting.
Build around your players.
And build around your players. Don't just make it entirely your
So-
own thing, because you might as well just be writing a book otherwise.
Get yourself a theme. Make sure to have variety and build around your players. I think are the 3 main takeaways from this episode.
Yes. I'm Sleepy Shaman. He's Austri, and he's Curly.
You can't say my name. I say my name. I'm Curly. Thank you.
How
very
dare
much for
you?
watching.
I wanted to take the title of host.
Well,
I'm just kidding.
Too
I won't be
bad.
able to.
I'm the host because it's my
No.
channel.
He's too powerful. Anyways,
Oh man. All right. Well, this has been a wonderful first episode of D&D and Dumb Butts. And
that's such a dumb butt name.
Such a dumb butt name. I know. It's
Just stop it.
no.
No.
Just
Well,
talk
no,
in the middle
we're
of a
gonna keep
sentence.
going until I think of something to come. No, we're not. All right, that's all.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Nice to see you. Bye.
Bye.